Hey everyone, today I want to talk about the Garrett PowerMax turbos for both the Bronco Raptor and Ranger Raptor 3.0 liter EcoBoost platform and the Ford Bronco and Ranger 2.7 liter EcoBoost platform. These are new turbos that just came out from Garrett, and in my opinion they should probably be your only consideration if you're looking at upgrading your turbos for either one of these platforms. Now, to preface this is going to be a long video of me rambling and talking about this stuff. If you don't want to sit and listen and watch this video, then by all means take this video, throw it into an AI and get it to summarize for you. It'll be a lot quicker if you don't want to sit here and listen to me babble and ramble the entire time. So anyways, let's jump into it. So just to kind of start things off, I do want to quickly talk about the compressor wheel and the turbine wheel, which are obviously the pivotal parts of the turbo itself. I'm going to be talking about inducer and exducer sizes, and this is exactly what I'm talking about, as you can see on screen. The compressor wheel is obviously the wheel that draws the fresh air into the turbo, and the front of that wheel is called the inducer. The rear of it's called the exducer. Then we have the shaft that goes back to the turbine wheel. The turbine wheel is obviously a wheel that spins with the exhaust gases and in turn turns the compressor wheel. Now the back of the turbine wheel is called the exducer, and the back is called the inducer and the front is called the exducer. So it's exactly the opposite as the compressor wheel. So anyways, now that you got that down, let's jump into the Garrett PowerMax literature here. And just to kind of start things off, the turbos in the Bronco Raptor and Ranger Raptor are actually very capable from the factory. Ford did a great job working with Garrett on the stock units, and they're pretty well sized from the factory. So what that means is that if you get some custom tuning done using the stock turbos and some supporting modifications like cold air intake, charge pipes, intercooler, all that, like the full bolt-on stuff, you can expect anywhere from around 470 to 490 wheel horsepower with the stock turbos using 93 octane. If you run an E50 mix of fuel, you can expect somewhere in the 530 to 550 range wheel horsepower, which is extremely strong. I do believe the stock turbos are maxed out around that level on E50 fuel, though the 3 liter in the EcoBoost is really limited by the stock fuel system. It's the direct injection only. It needs more. It needs a better fuel pump, injectors, etc. And there's only so much that it can do with the stock fuel system. So anyways, this OEM application is really strong. A lot of people are just okay with that. But if you need more, then this is going to be, in my opinion, the next best thing. So as you can see, the compressor wheel on this Garrett application, the inducer size is 41 millimeters, and the stock size is 38. So it's not a giant increase, but it is there. The exducer size on the Garrett is 52, stock is 49. So again, not giant, but it's there. Turbine size on the stock wheel, I don't actually know, but on this one it's 44 for the inducer and 39 for the exducer. So the turbine flow increase is not quite as much. It's about 6% per Garrett, and the compressor is about 18%. So what does that translate into power? Now I'm going to jump over to Full Race's website. They have a great website. Full Race has been in business, I think, for over 20 plus years. These guys are great. They do a ton of performance modifications for all Raptor platforms and a lot of Fords and other vehicles as well. But they have some great shots and great pictures of the turbos themselves, of the wastegate, the turbines, and everything else. These are 8+8 design, just like stock is, and so that's it's pretty cool to see that they have a very similar blade design as OEM, which means that it should spool a lot like OEM as well. So I do want to take a look at some of the gains here. Let's see, where are they? Okay, so down here to the results. The first one is from. This is from Goose Tune, and this is with the PowerMax turbos paired with the Nostrum high pressure fuel pump with a custom tune. I don't know the specifics as far as the fuel pump, but I assume it's stage 1 maybe with some injectors. But regardless, on E50, it's 568 wheel horsepower and 591 wheel torque. Super impressive. As you can see here, the stock power is 335, stock torque is 416. So that's a huge gain. 233 horsepower, 233 wheel horsepower gain, and 174 wheel torque gain. That is nasty. So this is probably full bolt-on, or at least has some bolt-ons with E50 fuel. So that's super good result. The next one is the Ranger Raptor. This one has the same motor, same turbos. This is stage 2, so it has bigger injectors and a better high pressure fuel pump. It's got a Process West, all the goodies like the intercooler intake, charge pipes, custom exhaust, and then this one uses a ZFG racing tune. On 93 octane, we're at 510 wheel horsepower and 506 wheel torque, and then on E50, we're at 601 wheel horsepower and 600 wheel torque, which is wowza. That's some big gains there. And so the owner of this vehicle is Nathan Dirt Derrick. He's Dirt D Performance is the name of his website. He has the fastest Ranger Raptor. In fact, this is the current configuration he has right now, and this is again with it's the same setup as the truck in testing 1. He has a full-blown fuel system, so this is the biggest fuel system that you can buy for the 3-liter EcoBoost. It's a Nostrum Stage X. It's got the Goliath pump with the biggest injectors. Everything else is the same, except he did add a built transmission, and he's got a FenFab intake as well. This one puts out on straight E85 670 wheel horsepower and 674 wheel torque, which is seriously nasty. So this truck runs 0 to 60 in low 3-second range and the quarter mile in low 11 seconds. It's just the fastest Ranger Raptor on the planet, with the 3-liter EcoBoost, that is, which is super impressive. Now, the turbos are completely maxed out. I think the fuel system has more to go. I believe that these turbos can be sent to companies like CRP or Turbo Bay to even get bigger compressors and turbines installed to put out more horsepower. So I'll be curious to see what Nathan's able to do about pushing the horsepower limit on this setup. We don't really know what the stock block is capable of. We do know that it is a better design compared to the Explorer STs that we saw. Even the 25 Explorer ST doesn't have the same robust crankshaft girdle and build as the Bronco Raptor and Ranger Raptor. So these are really robust blocks from the factory, though they can be built to even withstand more. So I'll be curious to see what the upper limits are. Leave it to ZFG to do so. He pushes the boundaries when it comes to the EcoBoost platform, that's for sure. But again, I mentioned CRP. You know, they do sell a Stage 3 turbo kit for the Bronco Raptor. CRP is well respected. They are one of the best in the industry when it comes to Ford EcoBoost upgrades on stock turbos. So if you're not familiar with them, you could send them your stock turbos. You can buy some on eBay or take them off your car, send it to CRP. They'll modify the compressor wheel from stages 2 through 3. And then for stages 4 through 5, they typically modify the compressor and turbine to get the most power. You know, they're a little expensive. It's a little less expensive to send in your own set. This is using a brand new Ford turbochargers and then have them do the work. So it's a little bit more expensive, but since the Garretts came out, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to go this route, in my opinion. But if you buy the Garretts and you want even more out of them, well, CRP and Turbo Bay are probably your 2 best options to get the turbos modified to do more. So these are 2 very prominent companies in the space. Really quick, the installation for the 3-liter Ranger Raptor and Bronco Raptor, I'm not going to go through all of this, obviously, but I did read through some of this, and it looks to be a lot easier than the 2.7. So this is something that you could do in your garage if you have, if you're a shade tree mechanic, or obviously you can take it to a shop and have them do it. But it doesn't look as bad as a 2.7. Now, let's jump over to the 2.7 real quick, and it's the exact same turbo, actually. The housing design is slightly different. As you can see that this one has not your traditional compressor intake. This one has an inlet that is on the driver's side for the 2.7 that you have to use the stock inlet. And then obviously there's some silicone hoses and stuff, some adapters and whatnot that you have to use on this on the 2.7. But the turbo itself is exactly the same. The specs are the same. So this is where you're going to see the big gains. So the 2.7 liter turbos, the OEM turbos, are tiny. They're very small. If you want to talk about power or capability, so in 93 octane, you can expect between 360, 380 wheel horsepower, maybe somewhere in that range. With straight E85, you can expect around 400, a little bit over 400 wheel horsepower with supporting bolt-ons. With the 2.7, you don't have to do any fuel modifications at all using the stock turbos because they come from the factory with dual injection. They have both have direct injection and port injection, so there's nothing else to do for the fuel system if you just want to run the stock turbos. Now, if you want to use these turbos, well, you're going to have to upgrade the fuel, which we'll talk about here shortly. Now, the stock 2.7 turbos, they have really small compressors. So the inducer size on stock wheels are 34 millimeter, and on these Garretts, it's 41. So that's a huge increase in size. The stock exducer is 44. These are 52. So altogether, it's about a 42% increase in compressor flow, which is giant. On the turbines, this inducer is 44, exducer is 39. On stock, it's 38 and 34. So again, a pretty big increase, about 27%. So, and I think the housing itself is actually bigger on these turbos compared to the stock ones. So the blade design is the same. So hopefully the spool should be very similar, if not the same, compared to the stock ones. But the power output and capability here is just monumental. It's huge. So jump back over to the full race website, which they have some great pictures of everything. And so you can kind of clearly see the big differences here with the turbo design here. Here it uses that inlet elbow, a little bit different, but again, the specifications are all the same compared to the other turbos. I'm not going to go through all this, but let's take a look at the resources. And do we have a dynograph? Yeah, dynograph here. So this is a little bit of a weird one because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's hard to see here, but the stock, they did a stock dyno pull on a Bronco 2.7. I think this is with MPT, more power tuning, and they're a very reputable tuner. But the stock power was 240, and the stock torque was 342. And with these turbos, which I believe was on 93 octane, maybe 91, I can't tell. Power went up to 458 and torque went up to 477. So that's a nice increase in power, right? But here they're only saying it's 133 wheel horsepower and 95 torque, but the math ain't mathin' here. So it's actually closer to 218 wheel horsepower increase and a 135 torque increase. And then if you look here, the dyno graph on the stock runs, like they ran it around like 2,100 RPMs where they started it, and then they stopped the stock pulls at 4.75 RPM, so a little under 5,000 RPM. Obviously, it was tapering down, but the torque was, but the power probably wasn't. And that's why it looks a little low. I don't know why they stopped it so early, and then with the Garretts, they went all the way to over 6,000. So I think this graph is kind of a wash. Maybe they just needed something to throw up here, but this is not really a good representation of what these are capable of. Now, if I would have kept my Bronco, I would have probably produced a graph to be helpful with mine, because I had every intention of upgrading to these turbos, but obviously just sold my Bronco, so I'm not going to be doing that, obviously. But hopefully someone can create a better graph here to show showcase the real performance gains with these turbos. What could you expect with these turbos on your 2.7? So I did talk with my tuner, who is ZFG Racing, about the capability here, and these turbos will max out your 2.7. Now the 2.7 2021 and up is slightly different than the traditional second gen 2.7 nano blocks. These ones have slightly beefier pistons, and they have oil cooling galleries in those pistons. So they are capable of a little bit more than what you would see like on the 2018 through 2020. But that being said, you could probably expect these turbos to put out around 520 to 550 wheel horsepower on E85. If you do want to run E85 with this setup, you will need to swap out the port injectors with something like the Injector Dynamics 1050Xs. That's what I would go with personally. That's what I was going to go with. If you're just running 93 octane, you probably don't need to go that strong on the injectors. You can just go with like some 3.5 liter EcoBoost Gen 3 injectors and throw those in. And that should be enough to get you close to that 450-ish wheel horsepower in 93, which I think is possible, somewhere around there. So one thing about the 2.7 is that the installation is a lot more difficult. They do tell you to drop the transmission cross member to install these turbos. I assume is to give you more clearance between the back of the turbo and the front of the downpipe. But they don't request you to do this with the 3 liter. So if you have to do this, then you might as well save up that money and buy yourself a downpipe. Whether you go with a CVF replication downpipe or an SPD downpipe, that's up to you and how much you want to spend. I will put links to both in the video's description if you're interested. But if you're going to go through all this, just go ahead and do that at the same time. You might as well see the most gains. If you're going after gains, like just go ahead and do that at the same time. If you're already dropping it, it just makes the most sense, because if you want to preserve and save the stock downpipes, you got to drop the transmission cross member anyways. So going back over to CRP, they do offer 2.7 liter upgrades as well. So you do have that option if you want to go that route. As you can see, it's, you know, it's $1,000 more. So unless you send in your turbos, it's not really worth going that route, in my opinion. So I would stick with, you know, the Garretts as far as making power. So I think that is it. That's all I wanted to showcase in the video. I know it's a long one, but I did wanted to kind of go over what was out there. So if you guys have a Bronco Raptor or Ranger Raptor, or a Ford Bronco or Ranger with a 2.7 liter EcoBoost, this is the route I would go with if you're wanting to make power. Like more power than a Ford Performance tune, more power than a custom tune. If you want some real power, like this is the route to go. And the pricing, in my opinion, is actually pretty damn reasonable, if you ask me. So that's pretty impressive. Now, I will make another video for the 2.3 liter in both the Ranger and Bronco once custom tuning opens up, because there are some options for turbo upgrades there as well. But if you guys have any questions about this video or anything that you want to talk about, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And thanks for checking out the video.